Got a 7-round mock draft for my favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, this week. This is one of my favorite videos to do every year because I get to talk about my team. I get to yap about my team for 30 minutes on YouTube, um, and just talk about the players that we have, the depth chart that we have, the free agents we got coming up in this one, at least in our second 2.0 Steelers 7-round mock that we'll do after free agency. Get to talk about the pickups that we made, trades that we might have made within that time, maybe. Um, and then the one right before the draft, just really talk about the guys that I would like for us to draft if they were to be there, and how they fit onto our team. So this is how we're doing it. We're going to run 2 to 3 in this one video just to have a little bit of variety, talk about, different guys, how maybe they could fit, maybe who we could target, at pick whatever, 21, 53. I think we have 80 as well. And just a disclaimer, I do mess with the sliders a little bit on these 7-round mock drafts usually. Just to get it up a little more, I do take everything up, which is needs, randomness, care for positional value, and public versus PFF for. Going in here, looking at our picks, we've got 21, 53. It was 85, not 80. Sorry, 121, 163, 225, and 249. So before I start the draft, usual, if you've been here before, we're gonna go take a look over here at our depth chart. And something new I'm going to incorporate in these 7-round mock drafts is look at PFF grades from this year and talk about, how guys performed this year as well. So let's get into that real quick before we get into the draft. So we're over here on ourlads.com. Shout out to them. This is usually the website I use for the depth chart when making 7-round mock drafts. And we start up here at receivers. Obviously, we got George Pickens, battled a little bit of injuries this year, but did play good when he was on the field for the most part. He had a few down games, and there's definitely something there attitude-wise that does make me a little worried sometimes. But I think overall, George Pickens is a top probably 15-ish, 20-ish receiver in the league. And I just think that if he could clean a few things up here and there, I think he's got potential to be in the top 10, but very good receiver nonetheless, and definitely a wide receiver one that can play outside for us for years as long as we re-sign him when that time is here. Then we got Van Jefferson and Mike Williams, who are free agents this offseason. I'm fine with bringing one of the two back as a more of a depth role, rather a actual starting wide receiver. Mike Williams, after we traded for him from the Jets, he had the big game-winning catch in his first week against Washington on a deep ball from Russell Wilson. And after that, he really didn't do a whole lot. He had a few, 2 to 3, maybe 4 big catches here and there, but he never really made an impact in the games too much anywhere. Van Jefferson, he was just kind of running cardio all year. He was just, on the field, not doing a whole lot. He did catch some passes here and there. But with him being younger and knowing Arthur Smith's system well from being with him in Atlanta, and all that, I do think Van Jefferson does make a little more sense to bring back over Mike Williams. But honestly, neither one of them are great. They should be like a wide receiver 4-ish, and they were like wide receiver 2 and 4 for us this year. Then we've got Calvin Austin, who had a great year. Great year from Calvin Austin. Was very pleased with what he produced onto the field. As a slot guy, was able to get over top and catch some deep balls and have some touchdowns as well. I do think he could still be a decent slot for us next year, especially if we were to bring in another outside guy with George. I do think Calvin Austin is a good football player still and can make an impact for our team next year and should definitely get some reps next year. And then finishing out that wide receiver room, we have a free agent, Ben Skoranek, who, if you know me personally, I'm not a big fan of from his Notre Dame days. However, I do have to root for him now because he's on my favorite football team in the NFL. And so, I think he would be a benefit to potentially bring back as a more of a run blocker, special teams guy, because he did make some impact plays on special teams. I think he forced a fumble one time and he recovered 2 or 3 as well. And then Roman Wilson, he's a very interesting player for me right now when it comes to the Steelers. He did not touch the field all year. I don't think he was even active for a game at all year. I don't even know if he played in the preseason, I don't think, if I'm not mistaken there. We drafted him in the 3rd round last year, and there was a lot of people very hyped up about him going into the season, and I was not the biggest fan of him going into the draft last year and coming out of the draft. But I am interested to see what he ends up being. I do definitely want to see him get reps next year, but I am a little more down on him now than I was going into the season. I just hope that at some point he can get healthy so we didn't waste a third round pick on him. Then the offensive line. Now, this is probably the second, I would say, most interesting position group of free agency this year for us because we have two guys who have played significant snaps for us over the past 2 to 3 years on our offensive line hitting free agency, and Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle and James Daniels at right guard. Dan Moore was a guy, if you asked me 2 years ago, I wanted him off the team so bad, and I've came around on him more. He definitely is a tackle that fits Arthur Smith's scheme. And he's really not a bad run blocker. We'll get into that here in a minute when we talk about PFF grades, but the pass block has not been great. He's a guy that if we can get him for cheap, I wouldn't mind bringing him back. However, I just think that we're going to let him go because I do think we'll end up sliding our 2023 first round pick right here, Broderick Jones, over to left tackle more than likely, and keep Troy Fautanu at right tackle. Calvin Anderson, also a free agent, backup left tackle. He had some spot starts and fill in roles here and there this year. He's a guy though that we'll probably let him go, but maybe we bring him back. Isaiah Malu, a little bit of a down year compared to the past few years. I'm starting to get a little worried about him with his age. Nate Herbig, I'm fine with letting him go. Zach Frazier was an amazing rookie for us this year, and I'm very, very glad that we got him in the second round last year. James Daniels, free agent, has been great when he's on the field. The problem is that there's been some injury history there, and I think with all of our other free agency stuff, I'm not sure that he's going to end up being back because Mason McCormick didn't play awful at right guard this year because James Daniels tore his ACL very early in the season, was out for a lot of the season. And then Troy Fautanu did not look bad before he also got hurt and was out for the season. I'm excited to see the future of this offensive line because if Mason McCormick ends up being good at right tackle, Zach Frazier and Troy Fautanu continue what they've shown this year, that's a solid three on that right side of the line with the center. Isaiah Malu will be fine, I think, at left guard, and then left tackle is a big question with Broderick because Broderick, to be honest, hasn't been great. A lot of penalties, a lot of attitude problems as well, and I'm starting to get a little worried about him as well. I think tackle is an interesting point in the draft for us, which we'll get to as well, because I do think that we might end up taking a tackle at some point, but I'm not exactly sure on that. Tight end, we're fine. Pat's been fine. Darnell Washington's been a good run blocker, and it's good for a catch or two a day or, a game, in the flats. Then we get the quarterback. And if you talk to a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers fans, I think they are on the wave of we want Justin over Russell if we have to bring one of the two back. And I'm fine with that. One, because if Justin Fields is not on the Steelers roster next year, I do owe one of my friends $20, but also because I think Justin Fields matches Arthur Smith's scheme very well. And granted, he didn't look great passing the ball, which we kind of already knew that from the Chicago days, but he did look great running the ball. And I think he was a great game manager in being able to limit the turnovers, which was a problem that he had in Chicago. I think he only threw 1 or 2 interceptions, if I'm not mistaken, with us. And he was 4-2 as a starter, if I'm correct. I think 4-2 as a starter, if I'm correct. So I would be very much down to bring Justin Fields back as our quarterback next year. And maybe it's on a 1-year deal. The problem is that I think that there's QB needy teams that are going to offer him more money or more years, and he's probably going to end up taking one of those. But from all the reports I'm seeing, I don't think Russell Wilson's going to be back. So then that's when it gets really tricky because if Justin Fields and Russell Wilson both are back next year on the Steelers roster, who's your quarterback? Kyle Allen's done. We did sign Skylar Thompson, whoop-de-doo. do you draft somebody in the third or fourth round, in which we're probably going to explore that option here in a little bit when we get into this mock draft. But yeah, quarterback and offensive line are the two big things. Really, it's this offense. This offense in general is very interesting. Because then you get to running back, where you've got Najee Harris, who has had 4 straight years of 1,000 yards, but it's like everybody's just out on him. And to an extent, I understand it. However, I think that I think you have to bring Najee Harris back if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that's where it starts. I don't think he's going to be back on our team next year, unfortunately. But man, I really, really hope he is, because he's been good for us, even though people think he hasn't been and people say he sucks. I think he's been fine. And Jaylen Warren is a restricted free agent, so I do hope we bring him back as well, because I think both of them have been a very good 1-2 punch over the past 2 years. And then we got Cordell Patterson, who's been absolutely I don't even want to get into Cordell Patterson. He's been so bad. He sucks. He sucks. And then on the defensive front isn't really going to change that much. It looks like, Larry Ogunjobi. I thought Larry Ogunjobi was a free agent. Maybe he's not. You got Larry Ogunjobi, Dean Lowry, Keanu Benton, who's been great. Montravius Adams, I thought he was a free agent as well. Isaiah Loudermilk, Cameron Hayward had a great, great year. And then obviously, you've got the outside linebackers as well. TJ Highsmith, Nick Herbig. I thought Preston Smith was also a free agent. I might be wrong with that. DeMarvin Leal. There's a lot of guys here that are going to be on the team again next year. Probably going to be very similar to that defensive front. And then also the inside backers. You got Patrick Queen. You got Cole Holcomb, who's going to come back from injury. Peyton Wilson didn't look too bad. Mark Robinson. And then Landon Roberts is a very key free agent for us as well, I think, because he's just played the run so well for us over the past 2 years. I would really, really like to bring in Landon Roberts back as well. And then the secondary, where there's a bunch of question marks, which it feels like over the past 3 to 4 to 5, actually like 10 years almost now, it feels like the Steelers secondary has been a question mark. And this was the year going into it where I was like, man, we might actually have a legit secondary for once. We bring in Dante Jackson. Corey Trice might be good. We get Joey Porter Jr., who looked great his rookie year. We've got Minko, who's one of the best safeties in the league. We got Deshaun Elliott. We got DeMonte Casey. Like this might be really good for us. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Dante Jackson was hurt half the time. Now, I will say to Dante Jackson, I will give credit to him. When he was on the field, he was actually pretty good. The problem was that he was hurt here and there. Corey Trice, he wasn't absolutely awful, but for some reason we manned him up on Jamar Chase in week 17 or week 18. Sorry, week 18, we manned him up on Jamar Chase and he got cooked the whole game. Joey Porter Jr. looked awful this year, being flat out honest. He had a ton of penalties, and he just simply, he was not a good corner this year. And that worries me a lot, because if he's not good, if he just had a good rookie year and that was it, we're back to square one again, just like in the QB room if Justin Fields and Russell Wilson are gone. We're back to square one in the corner room as well. Cameron Sutton we brought in, and he didn't play a role in anything. Minka didn't look great this year either. Deshaun Elliott was probably our best DB all year. Him and Dante Jackson. DeMonte Casey is also a free agent. I would like to bring back Dante Jackson, maybe, and probably Casey as well. Cameron Sutton, James Pierre, CJ Henderson, those guys can go. Atlanta Roberts, obviously, I want to bring back. Loudermilk's fine. He can come back. Tyler Medikevich, see you, buddy. But yeah, Miles Killebrew, he's just a special teams guy for us, but he's been really good on special teams. So I will give him that. And then Beanie Bishop had a few interceptions. Really good play against Aaron Rodgers in the Jets game. But yeah, and then we've got 2 punters who Corliss Waitman wasn't a bad punter for us when Cameron Johnson got hurt. Cameron Johnson also looked well before getting hurt. And Chris Boswell might just be the greatest kicker of all time. I mean, oh my goodness. And then none of our reserves really intrigue me. Jonathan Ward was interesting when he was in our lineup. No, maybe it's Aaron Shampklin who was interesting when he was in our lineup one week. I can't remember. That doesn't really matter. But yeah, that's our depth chart. Let's go over here and let's look at some PFF grades real quick. And I'm going to go through this really quickly because I feel like I've been talking about the depth chart way too long. And the other 7 mock drafts that I do will not be this in depth on the depth chart. Only the Steelers will be, just because of my knowledge for the Steelers, and I watch every single snap of every single game. Like I was talking about, I mean, Russell Wilson, he didn't play well down the stretch, and that worries me. I think there was an extent of when Russell Wilson first got in our lineup and was our starting quarterback, teams didn't really know how to play him in our system that we were running. And once they figured it out, everybody knew what to do. And it was just blitz him, blitz him, blitz him. His decision making this year was not very well. He was not getting the ball off in time a lot of times and taking sacks, unnecessary sacks, or throwing bad balls, and most of them getting intercepted. Not most of them, but some of them getting intercepted, or just or overthrowing the guy when he's open, stuff like that. I just think Justin Fields makes a lot more sense. Like I said earlier, I think he makes a lot more sense. But we're gonna move past those guys because I don't really look at PFF grades for quarterbacks. Receivers, like I said, Van Jefferson, not great this year. His pass blocking was high somehow. I don't know. His run blocking wasn't great. Receiving, not great. Kyle Dawson, like I said, good year. Run blocking, obviously not his strength, but he had a pretty decent year receiving. George Pickens, like I said, great year. Receiving, great. Run blocking, great. Wasn't bad either. Mike Williams, he's probably gone. Cordell Patterson, I'm surprised Cordell Patterson has a 67. How does he have a higher grade than Jaylen Warren? I don't know if anybody watching this video watched Steelers football this year, but I think everybody can attest to that. Cordell Patterson was not anywhere near as good as Jaylen Warren this year. And Jaylen Warren had a bad year. I'm not even going to lie. Maybe it was Jonathan Ward and not Aaron Shampklin. Okay. And then Najee, good year from Najee. Darnell Washington, good run blocking, not bad receiving as well. Michael Pruitt is interesting. I don't even think I mentioned him. I think he is a free agent as well. Pretty good run blocker, like legitimately, or maybe it's a pass blocker. Yeah, pretty good pass blocker, pretty decent run blocker, but no receiving upside there. Connor Hayward, not bad in the blocking game this year. Shout out to him for his 1 or 2 jet sweeps a year. And then Pat, a little bit of a down year for Pat, but still a solid tight end. Zach Frazier, 77.9 PFF grade, 5th out of all centers as a rookie. Shout out to the man. Isaiah Malu, not bad. Better run blocker than a pass blocker, though. Same with Zach Frazier. And then Mason McCormick, good run blocker, not a great pass blocker this year. And this is also about James Daniels, 92.9 PFF grade. That's going to be a tough decision in the front office. I can tell you that much. Broderick Jones. And then Troy Fautanu, 64.4 is not terrible. Definitely a better run blocker than a pass blocker. And that's kind of our identity now, though, with Arthur Smith. And Dan Moore Jr., 67.2. Again, better run blocker than pass blocker. Getting to, wait a minute. Hold on. I was saying all that backwards. Okay, Dan Moore Jr., 66.9 pass grade. All right. So everybody's actually a better pass blocker than a run blocker. Interesting. No, everybody's a better run blocker than pass blocker. That's my bad. Sorry, guys. I got confused there. Cameron Sutton, awful. Joey Porter Jr., 54.6. Awful. Corey Trice is 69. He had a 75 coverage grade. Like, that's not bad, honestly. Like, low-key, that's not bad. Now, granted, he only played 130 coverage snaps, but, to each their own, I guess. Wow. Hold on. Dante Jackson had a 49 PFF grade? What? Really? I don't believe that. I'm sorry, PFF. I don't believe that. Monte Casey wasn't great when he played. Deshaun Elliott, 83.9 run defense grade. Okay. Minka, like I said, down year from Minka. Landon Roberts, 91 run defense grade. Great year from Landon Roberts in the rush game. Great, great year. And then Peyton Wilson's interesting. And I think I saw someone talking about this not too long ago on YouTube, talking about how we kind of ran this rotation to where Peyton Wilson would kind of only come in on like third and longs and stuff like that, like passing downs. And Landon Roberts kind of stayed out there on rushing downs. And I really enjoyed watching that because Peyton Wilson was great in coverage, but was not great reading runs. He made a few plays here and there with his athleticism. He had an insane interception against the Ravens that kind of won us that game, the first game we played the Ravens. Obviously not the playoff game because we like to be first round exits. But yeah, Patrick Queen, not a great year, guys. Not a great year from Patrick Queen. Now, he was very good in rushing the passer when we sent him on blitzes. How many snaps was that? 79. Okay. Mark Robinson, still a decent run defender like he has been the past few years, but I mean, he only had 13 total snaps. Keanu Benton, decent year from Keanu Benton. And now his run defense was not great, but everything else he was pretty good in. Larry Ogunjobi, not a good year from him. Not a good year from the backup IDLs as well. Cameron Hayward, like I said, 90.1 grade this year, man. I mean, what a year from Cameron Hayward. Like, how old is he now? I got to look that up real quick. How old is Cameron Hayward now? He's like 38. No, I might be wrong on that. 35. 35 years old and having one of the best years of his career. Shout out to him. Nick Herbig, good year from him as well. Now, he was not great in run defense per usual, but his pass rush was amazing. Alex Highsmith, really good year from him as well. TJ Watt, I'm not going to lie, guys. TJ Watt had a 91.7 PFF grade and had a down year. That's insane. That's insane. Preston Smith wasn't absolutely awful when he got to us. And I just wish DeMarvin Leal would play more snaps, guys. I really do. I really wish he would. 68.3 grade and only played 51 snaps. Come on, man. All right. So, anyways, enough of the yapping about the Pittsburgh Steelers on the team. Let's get back to this draft. So, with this being my first Steelers 7-round mock, I do not have my needs ranked. However, I do have my first official needs list pre-free agency. Now, some of these have a question. I'm going to call a question mark designation because it is weird in the position we're in at that position right now. Those being quarterback, running back, and tackle. And then my rest of my needs list goes wide receiver, at least one corner, inside backer, and then safety and IDL depth. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 7 picks to work with. Because this is 1.0, I'm not going to do any trades at all. But let's get this simulator started and see what we're working with here at 21. So real quick, recapping how this went. They went Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Shador, Abdul, Will Johnson, Ted, Will Campbell, James Beard. Okay, pretty decent. Okay, Josh Simmons at 11. All right. Wow, Ashton Jeanty to the Dolphins at 13 is interesting. Benjamin Morrison all the way up at 14 to the Colts. Okay. All right. So pretty like self-explanatory first round so far leading up to us. So I definitely would say you're targeting wide receiver and corner in the first round. I'm not the biggest Matthew Golden fan right now. Now, he is a guy that I have not watched from an all 22 angle, which I like to watch receivers and corners from an all 22 angle and kind of quarterbacks and running backs. But everybody else, I don't care to watch all 22. I just want to watch actual film, like from games and stuff and see what's going on. Matthew Golden is not a guy that I've got to watch all 22 on, and I really, really need to because I know a lot of people like him and a lot of people are raving about him. I would consider him here at 24, for the Steelers. A guy that there's a few guys down the board that I really like that I think you can get in later rounds, and maybe, having 2, 4, 6, 7 total picks and having, right now 8 to 9 total needs, in my opinion, maybe you can double down on a position like receiver. Maybe there's not an IDL guy that you want to take as depth or a safety guy that you want to take as depth, or maybe there's not an interior backer that you want to get, or maybe we resign Landon Roberts. You won't need an interior backer. There's all these possibilities, and that's why free agency is key in all of this. But with me not knowing too much about me not knowing too much about Matthew Golden, my guy Jahdae Barron is sitting on the board, and I think that makes way too much sense for us because I really like him, and I think he would fit our scheme pretty decently. Jahdae Barron is a guy who had a 90.8 overall grade at Texas this year, 91 coverage grade. His man coverage is pretty decent, but plays good run defense and very good in zone coverage. We run some zone coverage, but we do run a little more man, and I think that's what makes me a little nervous about that. But I think Jahdae Barron is one of the best players in this draft right now. So I think him being on the board here is definitely the pick. And now this is a problem. And I actually had this conversation with one of my friends the other day who me and him, we talk ball and run mock drafts together sometimes. Um, these mock draft simulators are kind of weird because you're going to have your own personal rankings. PFF's going to have their rankings. Whatever the website you're using is going to have their rankings and all this, all that, right? And everybody's just kind of guessing, or everybody's ranking their own guys the way they want to. And so, I don't have Jahdae Barron ranked as 30 overall from the class. I probably have Jahdae Barron in the top 15 to 20 in this class. And so him being on the board here at 21, it just makes too much sense for me to not take him. I don't think he would be on the board here, but because he is, we're going to take him here at 21. That's one big thing about these mock drafts that I always do is, I draft how the board falls to me. All right. And that's how it fell to me this time. Now, this is an interesting pick because there's a lot of talent here already that I'm seeing. I like Dylan Sampson. I don't mind Caleb Johnson. I really like Jaden Higgins. I like Donovan Jackson a lot, but as a guard, so that's why I probably would pass up on him here. I know a lot of people like Derek Harmon. I discussed him in my last draft. Cameron Williams is a project, but he's interesting. I know people like Chris Paul Jr. Wyatt Milam can play all over the place. I like Albert Collins, Trayvon Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Dylan Gabriel, Jonas Savai-Naya, Jalen Royals, Gunnar Helm, Maxwell Harrison. Like, there's a lot of talent here. I like Josiah Stewart. But I think with him being here, and I've really, started to like this dude more and more recently, I'm going to have to take Jaden Higgins, the wide receiver out of Iowa State. I think if you can get corner and receiver and get two good players at those positions at 21 and 53, I think it opens up the rest of the draft for the Steelers. Isaiah Bond sitting here is interesting because I don't know. I like Tez Johnson too. Oh man, I like Trey Harris. So we've got a cornerback. We got a wide receiver, Jalen Milrose here. I'm good. Man, I just think he's going to go a lot higher than 118, man. I think he is. I think he's going to end up being a second, maybe third rounder. Tackles. I'm not interested in Anthony Belton right now. I'm not really interested in any of these guys right now, to be honest. I'm going to skip out on tackle right now. He's here. I got to take him. I'm going to take Jackson Dart at 85. Now, that is a pick that in 2 months or whatever, not 2 months, what's February 9th? In a month and a half, and free agency's been through, and I'm running my 2.0 for 7 round for the Steelers. Jackson Dart is going to be a guy that I'm either going to be picking a whole lot then, or I'm not going to be picking at all. I really like him. I really do. I don't want to say this necessarily. I don't think there might not be a superstar potential in him, but I definitely think that there's a very competent version of him in the NFL. I don't want to compare him to Jared Goff, but it's almost what I'm looking like. Maybe a Jared Goff. Maybe and that's hard to say with Jared Goff playing the best, football of his career right now. Maybe I'm looking more towards a younger Jared Goff. Or maybe like what a Sam Darnold produced this year for the Vikings. Maybe that's what I see in Jackson Dart. And that might be overshooting it a little bit, but that's what I'm looking at right now. I just saw my pick already. I'm just trying to see who else is here. But man, I got to take my guy. Agent Zero, Barrett Carter, inside backer out of Clemson. A guy that if you look at way too early mock drafts for this year, you might have seen him slipping in the first round, or maybe getting some praise there, maybe being an early second rounder. But I do like him. I think he is a guy that could fit our system because he can defend the pass. But he can also defend the run a little bit as well. I meant to actually pull that up, and that's my bad. Oh, I forgot there's this new tab here that can look at my picks. I actually like that. He had a down year. I'm not gonna lie. Watching, and he did not play coverage well. I will say that he did miss a decent amount of tackles. But his run defense was was pretty good as well. Didn't have a good game against Georgia or Virginia, really, or down the stretch against South Carolina and Texas. But I will say I think he's interesting. I think he could fit the room well with if we were to bring a Landon Roberts back with a Landon Roberts with Patrick Queen. I do see a lot of Patrick Queen in his game actually. With Cole Holcomb, with Peyton Wilson, I think he makes sense in that room. Moving on to pick, we are at 163 now. This is a fifth rounder. Looking at the needs list, we've got a quarterback, we've got a wide receiver, we've got a corner, and we've got an ILB. We've got 3 picks left. I think it's time to go look at this deep running back class that we have before us this year. And really, there's not a ton of guys left that I'm super interested in. I was hoping maybe an RJ Harvey or a Devin Neal would get to here. And it looks like they haven't. I think I'm going to skip out on running backs this time around. Maybe target Taj Brooks or Ollie Gordon, maybe at 225, 249. Let's go look at this wide receiver room who's still here. Juice Wells, Antoine Wells Jr. out of Ole Miss. I know that he had a pretty good week I think he was at the Shrine Bowl, not the Senior Bowl last week or 2 weeks ago now, I guess, technically, right? Maybe a week and a half. I don't know. I saw some videos of him running some routes and he interests me a lot right now. I'm not gonna lie. And his nickname is Juice. And if everybody knows, right up here, I was a big fan of Juice Deontay Johnson when he was in Pittsburgh. So that's interesting to look at. I think right now he's the pick for me. We went quarterback already. I talked about running backs right now. Emory Jones out of LSU, Johnny Cornelius out of Oregon. Those two are interesting players. I think I'm going to skip out on tackle in this draft. We got an ILB. IDL depth, Zeke Biggers out of Georgia Tech. I have heard about him. Power Cross interests me down the board. Maybe Nazir Stackhouse. I've heard about Ty Robinson. I don't think he had a good week at the Senior Bowl. I'm pretty sure though. Safeties. RJ Mickens, Malachi Moore, and Jordan Hancock, and Dan Jackson, Shiloh Sanders. None of these safeties really interest me that much either. I think I'm going to do it. I talked about Juice Wells, Anton Wells Jr. out of Mississippi, pairing him with Jackson Dart, bringing him in to the Steel City there at 163. 2 wide receivers, stacking up that room a little bit, just in case maybe we don't go re-sign those guys that are free agents or sign anybody at all at that position. Now is definitely where I'm going to turn and look at running back. And everybody that I mentioned that I kind of like is gone. Maybe we double down at corner. Ooh, or Muhammad's there. Who's like BPA? All quarterbacks. Aubrey Burks kind of interests me right here. Yeah, let's do it. We're gonna bring in Aubrey Burks out of West Virginia, the safety. Good at zone, I'm pretty sure. Let me check that real quick. Oh, brother. Looks like he was injured this year. Oh my gosh. Man, Aubrey Burks, slot guy. Okay. I thought he played like deep safety zone. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Aubrey Burks, welcome to Pittsburgh, I guess. And then 249, yeah, we're just going to take a player. So Corey Franklin interests me here, but I don't want to triple down on receivers. Jabbar Muhammad still here? Yes, he is. We're going to double down on corner with Jabbar Muhammad out of Oregon, a guy that I really liked in his junior or maybe sophomore year at Washington. The year that he went to the national championship, really liked it. Draft Jalen Miller over Jackson Dart. Absolutely not. No. So that's our first mock 7.0. for this video for the Steelers. We went Jahdae Barron, corner out of Texas. Jaden Higgins, Iowa State wide receiver. Jackson Dart, quarterback out of Mississippi. Barrett Carter, ILB, inside linebacker out of Clemson. Juice Antoine Wells Jr., wide receiver out of Ole Miss. Aubrey Burks, safety out of West Virginia. And Jabbar Muhammad, cornerback out of Oregon. Stacking in that secondary, getting 2 decent receivers that I like in this class, and then also getting a linebacker and a quarterback as well. So, new mock draft. Let's do it again. Steelers, and then here's what I'm going to do for this one. I am going to reset the sliders to how they are supposed to be. Let's do it like this. Mock draft simulator. Here we are. Yes, they are reset to how they are. We're gonna mess around and do this mock draft based on the regular sliders. And see how this one goes, see how the board falls to us. Let's look at it again. Shamar Stewart actually went before us last draft as well to the Broncos. That's interesting. Benjamin Morrison, Josh Simmons, Tyler Warren at 13. Oh, gosh. Luther Burden at 12. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Okay, this is an interesting one. I like this one, actually. I actually really liked it. Wow. Ted McMillan at 2 overall to the Browns. Isn't that interesting? All right, so this is, again, I just think you have to target receiver or corner in the first round. Emeka Egbuka and Luther Burden are both off the board again. And how much I hate to be repetitive, I think I still take Jahdae Barron here at 21. We'll run one more after this. We'll run a quick third one after this, to where we don't take Jahdae Barron with the first overall or our first round pick. Jalen Walker being here, I think, has to be the pick for us. Even though I would like to get a receiver, I know that there are guys down the board that I like. Jalen Walker still being there has to be the pick. And Jaden Higgins went 1 pick before us right there. Interesting. Third round. Oh, Tez Johnson's here. I do really like Tez Johnson. We're going to bring in Tez Johnson at 83. 121, I'm looking running back, quarterback potentially. Will Howard, Jackson Dart here again. I think I'm just going to take Jackson Dart again, guys. I'm sorry he's here. I'm going to do it. Will Howard's also interesting. I wouldn't mind Will Howard in the 4th or 5th round. I'm not a big fan of Riley Leonard in the NFL, but I'd prefer Jackson Dart, Will Howard over everybody else. Not a big fan of Quinn Ewers right now either. Running back, let's actually get one this time. Marcus Yarns here is interesting. I'm going to overdraft somebody here, I think. Let me look at the rest of the board real quick. Ooh, Emory Jones is also interesting. I'm going to take Emory Jones this time. Let's get a tackle. LSU, Emory Jones Jr., not the Emory Jones quarterback. Don't get mistaken with him, former Cincinnati, Florida quarterback in college football. One of my good buddy Riley White's favorite quarterback of all time in college, Emory Jones. Not really, but just a joke. And then we're going to take Jonathan Edwards out of Michigan. Had a very great sophomore year at Michigan. Got only covered, really a really good freshman year. Then a okay sophomore year, kind of injury ridden, and everybody's like, oh, okay, cool. He's going to bounce back. In 2024, was on the cover of NCAA football and then did not look great. I'm not going to lie. He definitely has some explosiveness in there, but yeah, Emory Jones had a good 2023, bad freshman year. Decent year not decent year this year. Hit a good pass blocking year, but run blocking was not great. He's more of a project than anything. 6'6", 315, big tackle. Jackson Dart, look at the PFF, everything. Wow, look at it. What a great year from Jackson Dart, man. No. Tez Johnson, no contested catch in there, but that's not really what we need right now, man. We got George Pickens for that. Jalen Walker, very good pass rush grade, run defense, coverage is okay. And then Jahdae Barron, man, look at that, man. Look at that. And then for our last pick of this draft, we went corner, linebacker, receiver, quarterback, tackle, halfback. Let's look at safeties, I guess. For the memes, we're going to take Shiloh Sanders. If we draft Shiloh Sanders, I'm not going to be a happy person. I want to put that out there right now. But Shiloh Sanders for the memes in the last pick right there. To recap this one, went Jahdae Barron again, corner out of Texas. Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia. Tez Johnson, wide receiver out of Oregon. Jackson Dart, quarterback out of Mississippi. Emory Jones Jr., tackle out of LSU. Donovan Edwards, halfback out of Michigan. And Shiloh Sanders, safety out of Colorado. And one more for the one time, real quick. Real quick. We're going to run it. We're not going to take Jahdae Barron first round this time. And I'm not even really going to recap this one. We're just going to run it. And that's going to be the video. Imagine. We're going to look receiver this time. We're going to take Matthew Golden. Let's take Matthew Golden. I've seen him mock to us a lot. We'll take him this time just to see what it looks like. And then let's check out the corners in this second round. Who is it? Who's here? Darian Porter. We're going to take Maxwell Harrison. I think he makes sense. His grades weren't great, but he did have a good Senior Bowl week. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take my guy Kobe Bryant out of Kansas. I'm a big fan of him. And I'm not talking about Kobe Bryant, the NBA player. I'm talking about Kobe Bryant, the cornerback out of Kansas, man. I am really interested to see what he does. And here is a guy. I just sound like Chris Collinsworth on the Sunday Night Football. Here's a guy, Nick Emanwari, who's been getting first round, comps, and I've seen him in first round, sitting here on the board at 85 with the need of a safety. Maybe we trade Mingo Fitzpatrick to get the money off the books. Let's take Nick Emanwari here at 85 out of South Carolina, which sounds weird coming from a Clemson fan praising a South Carolina player. Let's take him. Man, I want to take Jackson Dart right here. I'm going to pass up on Jackson Dart this time around. Just, trying to do something different. We're going to take a running back. We're going to take Brashard Smith out of SMU. Had a really good year out there with Kevin Jennings. Going to the ACC championship, losing a heartbreaker to my Clemson Tigers. And then got shut down in the first round. Wow, Jackson Dart went 2 picks before here, which they got him right here. Lost, in the first round of the playoffs to Penn State. But he had a good year out there at SMU running the football. Very interesting running back in this year's class. This whole running back class as a whole is super interesting. Super, super interesting. A lot of good college running backs in there. So I'm interested to see how that goes. So far, our picks, we went Matthew Golden, Kobe Bryant, Nick Emanwari, Brashard Smith, and Kyle McCord. So we went quarterback, halfback, safety, corner, receiver. Maybe you double down here at corner, receiver. Theo Weiss Jr., Kyron Lacey. Look his name up on Google. Corner. Maybe tackle. Maybe tackles the move. Oh, did we go inside backer? We haven't. We'll take Small Munden out of Georgia. We'll take Small Munden out of Georgia. Why not? And then last but not least, let's just double down somewhere. You know what? Let's take Zachary Franklin out of Illinois. Former UTSA Roadrunner, transferred to Illinois this year, had a good year out there with Luke Altmaier and Brett Bielema with the Fighting Illini. I think that's how you say it. Matthew Golden, wide receiver, Texas. Kobe Bryant, cornerback, Kansas. Nick Emanwari, safety, South Carolina. Brashard Smith, halfback, SMU. Kyle McCord, quarterback, Syracuse. Small Munden, linebacker, Georgia. And Zachary Franklin, wide receiver, Illinois. This has been a blast, guys. Appreciate y'all watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Where we have a 7-round mock draft for a mystery team coming up next week. Go Steelers. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.